Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Business Brunch. Today we're discussing Brexit's impact on fashion exports. I'm Jodie Evans, I'm Business Manager at Olivia May, and today I'm joined by Managing Director Anne Whorrall.
Hello.
So Olivia Knight, our Operations Manager.
Hello.
So today we are going to be discussing the impact of Brexit on fashion exports. So I think it goes without saying, obviously, that the dangers for British fashion have been well documented of late. So the UK trade policy, in fact, has called it, the manufacturing sector is most at risk. I think, the significant drop in exports lately, and in addition to European supplier fears that the UK, outside of the regulations, will have a massive impact. It's quite a topical conversation. So I think we'll start actually just by talking a little bit more about that. So I'll start with sharing, obviously, EU is probably one of the biggest markets for the UK. And so far, really, it's been quite clear and concise in the access to it. So it's hugely important for us.
What's the split in the market?
Well, at the minute, I'd say, in terms of general split, the split we see in the market is actually Germany, at 1.2 billion. So it's huge in terms of export. And then we see sort of Ireland slightly behind. France is 0.6 billion, and then Italy is 0.45 billion. So this split is huge, and it does have a massive impact as well. For us at Olivia May, we do find roughly about 25% of our exports go into the EU as well. So as you can imagine, this is a daily recurrence for us. We're looking at daily.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of, I guess, the customer journey, what we want to share with you is obviously the steps that we're taking, and also a little bit more about the process and the difficulties we've found, I guess. So in terms of our customer journey at the minute, we're just basically supporting customers. It's quite important that we make sure that the emotional connection is there with customers, and also, we're looking at the personas and how they're shopping and the needs of each customer. So we're dealing with lots of different customers every day from all parts of the European Union, and different regulations are applying to all of those countries. As you can imagine, it's quite tricky to deal with different scenarios, I guess. So we're looking at feedback from all of our employees as well, and also our fulfillment rates and how long those exports are taking. So Olivia, I suppose that you're kind of more in the know about this in terms of how we've improved experiences for customers. So just tell us a little bit more about what is involved, I guess, in a small business.
So since 2019, we've been working to unify our delivery proposition for our customers to better our customer experience and to continue to drive competitiveness and being one step ahead as a UK brand. Okay. We've experienced disruptions, even with the most professional and widespread couriers in the country and worldwide. We've introduced DHL and DPD for our couriers, and more recently UPS.
So we've actually been going with UPS more recently, I suppose, as an impact, haven't we? But so how long in terms of DHL have we found those couriers?
We've been working with DHL now for probably about a year. So we have a paperless service with DHL, so we don't have to include the customs invoices in the parcels, which helps get the parcels through customs quicker, so there's not much of a hold up.
How have the first couple of months been for 2021?
Poor Olivia's gone grey over the last couple of months.
Currently we're finding that the daily authorities are not prepared for the increased border checks, which is holding up customer orders as more regulations are needed. So when it comes to exports, around 25% of our online orders are being shipped to the EU.
So just in terms of, I guess, the process, so you saying the process is a lot more detailed than it was previous as we've left?
Yeah, so for each parcel now going out of the country, we have to fill out the declaration form. So we have to input the commodity code, the country of origin, and the threshold amount.
And when you say country of origin, you mean where the actual piece is made then? So you're having to, right.
Yeah,
so that's a long job, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I know, you know, this is something that you look at daily, and obviously these implications, they must have massive impact on actually the admin and processing these orders as well every day.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, I was reading the other day actually about, you know, it's going to be a huge impact for big businesses, you know, like your big retail groups. And as we've seen, there's been lots of change on the high street, and the online, I guess, propositions are coming through, but actually it's going to cost a lot more to process these orders into the EU. So I can imagine quite a costly task.
And how much longer do you think, Olivia, it takes you to do now, to do one?
It probably takes 10 minutes longer per parcel.
Wow, which is a lot. A big difference. Really
yeah, because there's a lot more information that we're having to enter. We need to make sure everything's correct. So the customer's not experiencing any additional costs at their end.
And would you say there's any particular courier that's better at doing this than anyone else, or are you finding quite inconsistent?
I'd say DHL are quite slick. But we use DHL to send worldwide, so to like Australia,
they're quite well known, aren't they, I think,
etc. And they have a door-to-door service. So we've been using them to enter the commodity codes, etc., for quite a long time now. So their process is quite slick. However, we've been using DPD within the UK and the EU, so there's been quite an adjustment with them.
Yeah, because DPD, I suppose, are more UK based, even though they've got, you know, warehouses and depots across Europe. I do know that they do hand over to third-party companies, which can make it difficult. So I suppose all that work that we have been doing, putting in place with, you know, making sure customer orders are tracked at every point, makes it a little bit trickier when they're handing over to third-party companies. Just for those that don't know, just explain a commodity code. What's involved? What is it, for those that don't?
So a commodity code is a generic code for what the item is, and then it also consists of what the fabric is made up of. So cotton, or if it's synthetic, etc.
You have a different code for every single piece depending on what it's made of.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
That's a lot of codes. How many codes do you have, Olivia? Just for the audience.
We probably have about between probably 50 and 70.
Oh, okay. That seems a lot to us. I'm sure there's many businesses out there that have more, but it does seem a lot to us, because we didn't really have any really relationship with them before.
Yeah,
it's huge. I mean, the examples where we've, I suppose, looked at, and even just the first 6 weeks of the year, you know, we're seeing different errors, issues happening across all different France, Germany, Spain. And I know, just tell us a little bit more about France, I guess, at the start of the year, because we were dealing with the impact of Brexit, but we were also dealing with the impact of COVID as well. So I bet that was quite challenging.
So both with the COVID border closure and the backlog of Brexit, customers have been waiting up to 4 weeks on an express service for their parcels, because they're just getting stuck in customs and they're just not moving through the system.
So as I suppose as a business then, it's quite tricky dealing with, obviously, the day-to-day of getting the parcels out, but we're also having to deal with customers and, you know, asking, where's my parcel, when am I receiving it? And it's quite tricky to get that information, I guess, quite quick.
Yeah, we're struggling to get the information quickly from the couriers, because they're having to see where it's up to in their system. And then majority of the time it's stuck at customs, so they don't have an update on when it's going to get released. So we're struggling to go back to our customers, because we don't want them to be worrying where it is and that we've not got an answer for them.
Of course, I suppose it's difficult for businesses to appear as the experts when often we don't always have, you know, a clear answer for them. It's quite tricky with dealing with those customers. So just tell us a little bit more, what does a daily day like for you at the minute then, in terms of dealing with the impact of this? Is it something, I know we're looking at daily, but how's that working at the minute?
Okay, so as a smaller business,
I suppose it does have a huge impact day to day, doesn't it, if you've got to get orders out? And then, I mean, are you checking orders every single day and where they're up to, and having to sort of update customers then?
Yeah, so we check the process of each order every day to see where it's up to in the system, and then we try and relay this information to the customers so they know that we're still in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think, like you were saying, I think we've had lots of updates from you every sort of day, haven't we, Olivia? In terms of, you know, the different colours that you actually use on the spreadsheets, and saying, you know, the reds and the blues and the greens or whatever, and that's just obviously just showing us where everything is actually up to. But as you're saying, it's just a continual tracking process. That means that every morning you're in tracking people's parcels. There's quite a lot of parcels. And then you're actually then communicating with the customers. Is that right? Is that what has to happen?
That's correct. So we're using the customer data to enhance experiences, and then we monitor their complaints, and the information provided that we can give back to the customer.
Mm-hmm. And what are you finding is the main reason for the delay? Is it the paperwork? Is it that I guess businesses aren't including what they need to?
At the start of the year, it was the paperwork. So now we have to include 3 invoices in each parcel. So at the start of the year, if all the paperwork wasn't included in each parcel, that got returned back to us. So then we had to resend the parcels out. But now, even if we have the paperless, if we can send the documentation electronically to customs, even those parcels are now getting refused. So we're having to put the paperwork in regardless.
Wow, that's a huge impact, isn't it? Because I know we introduced UPS as the courier, you know, and they're world renowned for being a door-to-door service, so that the customer has no nasty unexpected charges. It's a really streamlined process. But even you're saying now, even that, you know, these couriers as well are experiencing these issues.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. So massive changes, I guess, for all businesses, let alone small business like ourselves, I guess. I mean, I will move on to obviously the impact. Surely there's an impact of these costs, that, you know, it's taking longer, we're experiencing. How's that working for, I guess, our deliveries that are coming to us as a business? Because I know we obviously bring a lot of our deliveries from the EU as well. Is it happening the same way?
Yeah, so it's slowing up our deliveries getting to us, because they're having to go through exactly the same checks. So we're not getting our orders as quickly. So we're seeing a delay in the new season going up online.
And that's obviously going to be quite costly as well. So, I mean, in terms of cost, then I guess the impact of the cost and what we're offering our customers, you know, we know that a customer's lifetime value is, you know, invaluable, I guess, but we do have to think about longer term approaches. So I guess we're back and forth every day, aren't we, in terms of sending parcels out? How much does that cost? Because sometimes we can be sending something out twice, and it's obviously double the cost. But I guess in supporting customers, what the approaches that we've taken is obviously a problem halved is a problem shared, you know, that type of approach. But as you say, the customer data is so vital for that, because it's not a one size fits all. So I guess it's really looking at those customer issues and complaints and making them more real personalized in terms of the communication and the service that we give them back. So we've improved delivery propositions. We've discussed kind of the issues that we've had. I guess in terms of a strategy for us, it's really key that we look at targeted marketing around this. You're saying transparency is really key for obviously making sure those customers know exactly what's happening with their items, and a real professionalism in that, I guess, because I can't imagine that every customer who's waited 4 or 5 weeks for a parcel is going to be quite calm and collected. They're obviously going to be quite angry at that. So it's dealing with it with real professionalism, I guess. And as you say, moving forward, just to be innovative with bespoke solutions for these customers is something that we're looking at. So I think it's definitely an insight for businesses who are thinking about distributing to EU markets and just how they do that in the most clean and professional way. That's been great. Would you have any advice for UK customers then who are perhaps shopping European sites?
So I'd say to check where they are shipping the products from, check the threshold amount, check the country of origin, so they're not going to incur extra costs when on delivery, and check that the courier includes the customs duties and the prices include the VAT.
Wow, so there's a lot to consider then. I know that's not normally things I would consider when purchasing, but I definitely going to have to make some changes for the future, I think. But no, it's been really insightful. I think any business that's considering, doing what we're doing, it does have to be treated with the utmost respect, I guess, and understanding the situation as we know that things are changing. That was great, thank you. So we'll move on to Anne Whorrall, our Managing Director, who's going to, I guess, as a business, what changes do we hope for? What do we expect? What have we been promised that we're not getting at the minute? How's that been for you, Anne?
I think it has. I think it's been quite an insight, a surprise for obviously all of our European designers who obviously are shipping to us as this season. They probably weren't quite expecting the country of origin issues that obviously we're facing, which of course does make the costs are in many cases 12% in addition. So I think that's been quite a shock on top of obviously what Olivia's obviously been talking about in terms of all of the paperwork. So I think for them, that's been quite a surprise. And of course, they've really had no time much to really sort of like make any adjustments or anything in terms of their strategies immediately. And obviously, as we're going into the buying season for winter, again, there's nothing really that their products are out there, their fabrics are chosen, their points of production are have already happened, and so for their samples, and so therefore they actually can't really make much of an adjustment. I think as going forward, I mean, obviously some designers, of course, are trying to absorb some of the costings in the initial stages, of course, understandably, and then also, as we were hearing yesterday, don't touch those products that they won't have the right country of origin. So even then, they're actually making some already judgments, obviously, and using those strategies to say, actually, for UK customers, perhaps you don't actually choose those pieces because they will actually incur the duties. And so, of course, if they're actually just purely from Italy, purely from Germany, purely from Spain or wherever, as many of our international designers are, then obviously that's not a problem. That's absolutely fine. But obviously, if they are made anywhere else, then obviously they're at least highlighting it to us and indicating it to us. So I think that's really sort of like where we are at the moment. I think going forward, I think many of the designers will obviously will sit back and think, well, actually, is the UK market maybe for me?
Yeah,
in that sense, because obviously they will think, well, okay, it is actually cheaper, or it's better, or the fabric choices are better in another country, which may actually be out of the EU, and therefore as a result of it, they may say, okay, well, that won't actually, be very good in the UK. The UK buyers maybe actually won't want it, so actually we'll pull out of the UK. And I think we've obviously met one or two designers along the way that obviously have. But I think also COVID's had an impact on that, of course. So I can't just say it's only around Brexit, but certainly there is, there's conversations going on around that. Or they may actually produce a smaller collection or just show a smaller collection for the UK market if they are a designer that actually sources fabrics from around the world, which of course is important that they may do, and therefore actually they may have those garments made up in those different parts of the world. So I think that's our first sort of stages. I think for us, strategies in terms of customer service is really, really so important through this year. It really is, because obviously, as Olivia's pointed out, customers just weren't expecting this, and obviously neither were we really. It all sort of came unravelled very quickly in the early stages. Certainly the VAT was not a problem. We all understood that was already in place. But I think, all of those countries of origins were perhaps quite a surprise. So I think for customers, obviously, and for us buying, obviously, as well, as we kind of pointed out, for us buying as well around the world, I think that's something that has become just a bit of a surprise. And I think as we go forward, then obviously we'll be making our buying decisions based on, where's our country of origin. But as longer term strategies, then obviously there will be trade agreements with different countries outside of that, because obviously we will be standing alone with countries like China, countries like India, where obviously many of our fabrics come from. So once, when we have deals with those countries, then obviously I think it will settle down over time, of course. But there'll be a shifting in the market, definitely, as we go through this year.
Hugely. I mean, it's interesting, I guess, to see that literally stems, because as you know, fashion always works 2, 3, 4 seasons ahead. So for designers to preempt what was going to happen, because obviously we're all told throughout 2019, 2020, prepare for Brexit, there's not actually a lot of I guess transparency on what impact that has down to sending a parcel, like Olivia said. So now I guess we're having to work a little bit go backwards a little bit. We know that some manufacturers will part finish their items, so would start them in maybe Turkey, Morocco, and then actually finish them in the EU. So I can imagine there's complexity around that, because it's what country of origin is it then. So huge impact, I guess, then. So luxury fashion is going to take a real impact in general then, in terms of the offering for the UK market, certainly. And then I guess, do you think European countries would see maybe UK have slight advantage then in that sense?
It's difficult to tell at the moment. It really is. I think simply because it is literally unraveling, and I don't think they've actually really got all of their strategies together. I think it is, you listen to different conversations on different days. So I think it is, at the moment, it is just unraveling. And I think, once agreements are made, then maybe, but I'm sure also there will be different agreements with the EU as well. So I think it will be, it's a trade opportunity, I suppose, in terms of the whole thing. I think it's just finding our way around it is the most important thing. And I think it's the most important thing, obviously, to be so open and transparent with customers as well at every stage of that, because that's the most important thing. Because it is, if it's confusing for us, can you imagine how confusing it is for a customer who even myself on a personal basis have ordered personally from other countries around Europe, and they've landed with different charges on them, and sometimes no charges when actually they should have had charges. It's obviously been, sort of like just that complexity. So therefore that experience is completely confusing for any customer. So that's the most important thing, is that we are completely transparent, and we can actually show that whole journey and the whole breakdown of what we actually see. And of course, in areas where we need to, we of course would absorb the costs as well, as we have been in the short term. Obviously, that's not something that we can obviously continue with, seeing as we've been hit hard by everything, really.
Yeah, always, I guess. So it's of course it's not sustainable. So we're dealing with COVID exit strategy, and then we've also got the impact of Brexit. So I guess we're being hit both ways.
Absolutely.
It's very challenging. But no, I totally agree on the whole customer approach. There's definitely an empathy that's needed there, and an understanding. Would you wait that long for a parcel before wanting a refund? Does the business give a refund before that product has come back into the business from a cost point of view? So I think, the accuracy and the, just making sure that as a business we are very reliable in that sense, explaining the process to the customer, making sure they've got the information in front of them, and even acting like the expert when sometimes we don't always have the answer, I think is something everyone will share, as part of what last year has taught us. But it's definitely something I think would be a big focus for us this year, for the rest of the year.
I think Olivia will probably share with me. So we feel like we represent two businesses. We represent ourselves, of course, as Olivia May. We also represent the courier, because actually the only person who comes anywhere near anything is obviously come straight to us in terms of delivery. So we represent DHL, we represent DPD, we represent UPS, and obviously we're having to sort of do that, because obviously it's our responsibility. And I think you have to take it as your responsibility to deliver the piece to the customer in the safest and the most efficient and the most transparent way now possible. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's that first impression as well, isn't it? If it has been 4 weeks, it might not have even left, arrived with the customer how it's left us as well, and nicely packaged with the ribbon, etc. So again, that experience is a little bit tainted in that way. So yeah, it's a real eye-opener, I guess. So in terms of the impact, obviously we touched on what that means for luxury fashion and the UK fashion industry, I guess. How do you think that's going to impact on, I guess, up-and-coming designers and, talent, I guess, in the UK? How do you think that's going to have an impact?
I think it is difficult. I think it's difficult in one way, in the sense that obviously as designers, as they set up maybe within the UK, obviously they need to source their fabrics and they need to source their production. And of course, some of that can be made in the UK, but we don't actually have a particularly expert area in that particular field. And so therefore, they're likely to be sourcing their fabrics and their production in other countries. And therefore, that obviously will have an impact on the choices they make. And of course, can actually have an impact on the actual look and feel of the garment that they'll actually end up with as a finished product, because obviously all designers are, they have a very clear view of what that story, what that collection will actually look like for the season. And it's so important that those fabrics are sourced correctly, and also with the right, with the right content. Obviously we talk a lot about sustainability, and many young designers are so ahead as well in terms of looking at that. And that's been really important. So of course, in the way in which they actually source those fabrics, and some countries are more ahead in the way in which they're actually looking at their sustainable fabrics and how they're doing that. And therefore, sourcing those pieces will then actually, of course, make that collection perhaps more expensive as well. So they do have to have, a thought about that as well. And obviously for themselves, if they're actually also wanting to export. The UK market's a big market, but obviously there's a much bigger market outside, and Europe, of course, is a big market, and therefore they do, if they're exporting to the European Union, then obviously they do also have the same implications that we've all been discussing this morning around that. So on one side it's an opportunity, on another side it is, you really do have to put your thinking cap on in terms of actually what you're actually doing. So in fact, yes, as a designer, you have to be a very sort of strong business focus in what you're actually producing and what you're thinking about producing as well. So yes, I mean, for us, obviously in the UK, clearly, we'd be looking at designers as well that would actually be able to produce in the UK. That would be fantastic, of course, but I think over time that will come.
Yeah, I mean, it is, as you say, it's quite, I guess, a hot topic, this, but and there's been lots of issues we've discussed, but there is also opportunity there. From a designer point of view, what we're saying is obviously they will lose slight quality simply because of the availability of the fabrics. And, I suppose designers are used to packing up the suitcase, bumbling down to the trunk shows, and here we go, here's my collection. So you've got the impact of Brexit again, but then also the impact of COVID and the restrictions on travel are going to make a difference as well. So again, it does take off opportunity there. But as you say, for the UK market, as we know, there is kind of less interest from UK workers to upskill in that textiles industry, but there will be huge opportunity there for small businesses to look at UK manufacturers and explore creativity. So at least we end on a positive note. There is a little bit of that there, I think. So no, that's great. I mean, we could talk about this all day. We look at it every single day, but I think hopefully, just to close, we'll be sticking close to the updates, and hopefully we'll give you a little bit more insight into the daily goings on how Brexit has affected us as a fashion retailer. So hopefully you've enjoyed talking and discussing with us today and taking time out. I'm sure we will unite with all the UK businesses when it comes to say sit tight. It isn't going to be a short journey to the end of the Brexit impact, but I'm sure most businesses will continue to adjust, develop and adapt to these new market forces. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.